Awesome. So hi, everybody. My name is Molly Atwater. I am the director of UOAA's Young Ostomate Outreach Program. And today we are so glad you've joined us for our conversation on raising a family as an ostomate. So you have tuned into our Young Ostomate Outreach Ask Me Anything panel discussions. And today we've got two awesome ostomates who I feel very closely related to in some way, shape, or form, purely because we lived in the same places. But today we've got Brent Schwartz, who is a dad and ostomate, and we've got Meghan Brown, who is a mom and an ostomate. I'm gonna let each of them talk a little bit about their experience as what led them to become ostomates and a little bit of what they're up to now other than wrangling children. And then we can go ahead and start asking some questions. So let's kick it off with you, Brent.
All right, thanks, Molly. My name is Brent Schwartz. I have been an ostomate for 8.5 years. I have Crohn's disease since I was 10 or 12 years old, depending whether you go for symptoms or diagnosis, but got an ostomate, so it was 2014. I had two children still have two children at the time. They were, my son was 5 years old. My daughter was just about 3. I had been very sick for about a year before that. And ostomy fixed that. And I've been doing quite well since then. And as a parent, there's plenty to talk about in terms of what to share with children, how children react, balancing life with a child, and an ostomy, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So thanks, Molly.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent, for being here. And Meghan, on your side.
Hi, my name is Meghan Brown. I have had my ostomy for 6 years, and my story sounds pretty similar to Brent because I'm a Crohn's patient, but I was diagnosed when I was about 13 years old. And then 10 years of really bad scarring and intense inflammation on my colon actually turned it precancerous. And so I was given the decision, do I want to have an ostomy, or the other option was potentially go through routine cancer checks just to make sure cancer wasn't progressing. So I chose an ostomy. And just like in Brent's situation, it's really done miracles for my health and for my life. I'm not suffering anymore. I'm not in any pain anymore. I still have Crohn's. But I am a mom to 2 little babies. I have a 1-year-old and almost 3-year-old. And I went through pregnancy with my ostomy for both of my pregnancies. So I'm excited to share about that. And I can't wait, Brent, to hear more about how you talk to your children about your ostomy, because my children are still really young and they don't really understand it or ask about it. My 3-year-old thinks it's a sticker on my stomach. She calls it my sticker. So I'm anxious to hear how you handle that with your children.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we have both of you kind of talking about becoming an ostomate pre-parenthood and working your way into that realm, and Brent, and on your side, becoming an ostomate while you were already a parent. So how that has changed the dynamic of parent-kid stuff. So with that, to get started, so Brent, can you share with us a little bit about how you shared with your kids what was going to happen to dad, and how much did they understand at the age that they were when you underwent surgery?
Sure. So there's 2 pieces to that. So there's sharing with them that I was going to be going to the hospital and having surgery, and there was sharing with them that that surgery resulted in an ostomy and what that is. And those 2 pieces came about 3+ years apart. When I went in for surgery, my kids were 5 and almost 3. And even I was not really accepting too much in terms of what was happening to me in terms of getting an ostomy. It was really my last choice after trying all these medicines and being sick for a year. It was, ostomy or, die. And as the slogan is ostomies are lifesavers, and it was. So at that point in time, it was, and I had been in the hospital multiple times during this flare, so they knew Daddy kept going away. This time we knew it was going to be longer. This time it wasn't an emergency. Well, not like running to the ER or anything. It was planned surgery, about a 2-week lead time. And that's a good piece to talk about as well, because this was framed a little differently. This was, we're finally going to make Daddy better. Daddy's been sick, and my daughter was 2, almost 3 years old during this whole time that I was sick, and it's a little harder for her to understand. But she knew that Daddy wasn't there a lot. Daddy couldn't play, and we tried to describe it as a positive thing, but it was also very scary to have Daddy go away for a while. And she was having more trouble than my son, who boys are a little, or maybe they just don't express it as much, but they're a little, oh, Dad's going away. Okay, fine. But one thing I did for her, and it still is important to her to this day. My wife had given, it was April, I think, was my surgery. I should know the date, but I don't. That Valentine's Day, my wife had got me like a little stuffed giraffe thing, from a drugstore or something. And it was just sitting on my bed, and my daughter came and was very upset that Daddy was going away. And I just took the giraffe and I said, Harvey the giraffe, I said, maybe you can help Daddy, because the kids, they always want to be able to help, and they're concerned about their parents. They feel helpless. There's nothing they can do. So I came up with a job for her for while I was gone. I said, you need to take care of Harvey the giraffe while I'm gone. Would you be able to do that? It'll be a huge help to me because I'm going to worry about him. And she's like, big eyes, yes, I can do that. I could take care of, she didn't have her R's at the time. I could take care of Javi. And she did, and she's taken it very seriously. She runs and tells her brother and her mom, and Dad gave me Javi. I have to take care of him. And she's asking me feeding instructions and stuff, which got a little complicated there. But Scarlett, don't feed him real food. But that was a big deal because it gave her a purpose, something to do, a way that she felt she could help. And to this day, she still sleeps with, now correctly pronounced, Harvey. That's her stuffed animal. I wake her up for school in the morning. She's 11 now, and she's got it stuffed under her armpit. The thing is flat as a pancake now, but it's a great story, and it just shows how important that was to her and how meaningful that was to her, and to me as well. Whenever I see her sleeping with that giraffe, it gives me a great feeling. Fast forward, it took me a long time to tell them. I still haven't told lots of people I'm pretty close to. I'm very private, and and working through my own issues in terms of sharing that I have an ostomy. This is a big step forward today. But my concern, and Megan, you'll understand this, kids repeat and tell people everything about anything. And if you want to be private about something, don't tell a little kid, because they will, be on the phone with, everybody, or in public, their teachers, anyone, and tell. So that was my bigger concern, less as far as them understanding, and more in terms of them repeating it. But then I just kept delaying telling them. I would never take my shirt off in front of them. I would always, and kids are everywhere. So I would lock myself in the closet to get changed. Just ridiculous. This is my own house, my own kids, but it was very hard for me mentally to get in a place to be able to tell them. I finally did. So it was about 3 years later. So they would have been 6 and probably almost 9 at the time. So I flashed back to how, remember when Daddy was away, had the big surgery, and when Dad's always guarding his stomach, and I explained it to them. I didn't use a stuffed animal to show them. I know they have those out there. At this point, they were old enough to, just be told and shown. My son didn't want to see it. It didn't really care. My daughter kept asking all these questions, wanted to see it and such. And I just explained in scientific terms what it was, explained that I was very private about it and didn't want them telling people, and they've been good about that. And it was, maybe a week of asking questions, and then that's just how it is. So long story there, but it really was 2 different pieces. And a lot of it was really just my own space, when I was ready to tell and share and trust them, to be able to understand it themselves, as well as to keep it private if I requested.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the Harvey the Giraffe story. I feel like so many times in our chronic illness experience, everybody wants to help. And when especially kids, when they feel like they can't, that was a genius way to make her feel like she was part of your healing and making sure that she felt like a part of that process for you. So that's definitely something I'm going to keep in mind. I'll find my own Harvey the Giraffe. So what I've taken away from that is like, you didn't have to make it a big deal. And I like that you let them navigate their questions on their own, in terms of your daughter seemed more curious. And so being open with her, and your son, just as sons sometimes are, just a little bit more hands off there. That's really cool. And I'm assuming, Megan, since your two are almost 3 and 1, you don't quite get the conversations yet.
No, not yet. But I do want to say I love the Harvey the Giraffe too, because I just kept thinking, like, as a parent, seeing my daughter with that, and it means so much to her. But as a parent, I'm sure, Brent, like, you see that, and it just fills you with so much emotion that, like, she still sleeps with it every single night, and that's her favorite stuffed animal, and the backstory with it. So that just, like, got me. But no, I mean, a 1-year-old literally just turned 1. So, like, we're walking, not really talking, totally oblivious to it all. My 3-year-old, she's never asked any questions. We're pretty open. She's seen it. It's nothing that we've, like, tried to hide or not talk about. So she's heard me talk about it before, but she's really not asked anything. She sees it. Like I said, she thinks it's a sticker on my stomach. And so we'll just go with that until she's a little bit older and keeps asking questions. But I will say I have a really good friend with an ostomy, and she has children. And a funny story that she dealt with when her children were little, her children thought that all girls had ostomies because mommy had an ostomy. So all girls had ostomies. So she had to explain, no, not all girls have ostomies. So yeah, but no big conversations yet. So I loved hearing your experience, Brent, because I know that those are going to come someday, probably someday soon.
Yeah.
As well as telling them and them running and telling everyone. So
yeah, but that is one of those things where you don't necessarily want, like, for show and tell this week, I'm going to tell you about how my mom poops. Like, there are certain times when that could be fun, and others that really don't want that in front of your first grade class.
yeah, I just envisioned the teacher calling and being like, Miss Brown, today your daughter shared something with the class. So yeah, definitely.
It's like, she said that you poop in a bag. Is everything going on okay at home? And
hey, just more education.
Exactly.
Start them young. Start those advocates early.
It's hard because you don't want to tell your kids to keep secrets, but at the same time, they will tell everybody everything. I mean, show and tell. You wouldn't believe the things my kids have brought for show and tell. But yeah, yes, you can picture them either not just telling about it, but like going in the closet, bringing in the bags and such. But Megan, I'd say it's a matter of when you're ready to talk to them. Definitely kind of tell them a little, let them lead the way. They may show interest. Probably not, especially, if they're on the younger side, they're not going to care. And if they've seen it on you already, it's not a big deal. It's not a change. So, and that's where, with me, you know, at least for my son who was older at the time and had awareness of, dad used to take off his shirt and go swimming and such, and it looked like this, and now it looks different. So that was a change. So that's a bigger thing than just, mom's always been that way.
Mhm. Makes a ton of sense. So a little less on the purely ostomy and appliancey sort of front. Have you guys dealt with either health flares or other symptoms while trying to be a parent? And if so, like, how did you navigate that? How do you explain it to your kids or take time for yourself to be chronically ill? That's my next question for you guys.
I'll say for me, I feel extremely lucky because I have an extremely supportive partner. Especially, we were talking earlier in the thick of it with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. That is a lot for one person, to manage, but I'm really lucky that I have a supportive partner. I thankfully have not had to be hospitalized or dealt with anything that severe. I have had quite a few blockages that I was able to work out at home. But, when you go through something like that, for me, it's like I cannot get up. I cannot function. I am in so much pain right now. The last thing I can do is chase a toddler around the house. So, just being able to communicate well with my husband, and we're on the same page about things, and he knows, okay, you're having a blockage. Why don't you stay here? You need downtime, take care of yourself. Here's the heating pad. Let me help. And I'm actually really lucky too, because prior to right now, we were a military family. And so we lived all over the United States. But once we started having children, we realized we really want to be close to home and we want our families because we knew we were going to need family support. Especially, we were living in Colorado, and I'm from Virginia, 24 hours away. So we had family 24 hours away. That was it. And at that point, if I had gotten sick with children, we didn't have anyone to help us. So I think making the conscientious decision to move back home, be closer to family, has helped us a lot too. So just having all the support possible, and everyone says have that village, having that village, the motherhood village, the chronic illness village, ostomy village, just all the support. I feel like you really can never have enough support. So that's why UOAA is so fabulous, because all the support, if you need support, you guys have support to offer and you can direct the support. So yeah, just lots of support and understanding and good communication has helped us get through it.
Mm-hmm. And do your kids get it when mommy's feeling bad, or is it like completely oblivious?
I think our 3-year-old, our daughter, she's like kind of getting it, dad, like my husband will tell her, oh, mommy's not feeling good. Like, let's let mommy rest. Let's leave mommy. And she's so good. She'll just go with him and they'll go do their fun things so I can kind of work it out. And then as soon as I'm feeling better, it's like, nothing happened. Mommy's here and mommy's okay and mommy's fine. She's gonna be fine. She's just not feeling well right now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What about you, Brent? I know you've ended up in the hospital at least once since I've known you. So your kids have experienced that before.
It's since the ostomy has probably been about a dozen times, 2 follow-up surgeries, and all the other times were bowel obstructions as recently as this Memorial Day weekend. So my kids know it, don't like it, but as Meghan was saying, support is the most important thing. And my number one tip as a parent for this, have a list. When you've got to be taken to the hospital and your spouse has to take you and probably wants to, I know at least with my wife, she always wants to stay there with me, but then there's, okay, but we also have these little kids, they need care too. What do you do? we have a literal list of support people, each of whom we've spoken to, years ago, and as we add new people to it, speak to them as well and talk about, hey, these times may occur when Brent has to go to the hospital and we need people to stay with our kids. Can we call you, contact you for this if we need it? And you go down the list. So, if the first person's not available, then you move on to the second one. If you have that at the ready, it makes us feel better, as well as the kids as well. They know about this list. They know that, they will always be taken care of. And that is one of the most important things for kids. They're upset when mom or dad needs to go to the hospital or isn't feeling well. But as a child, the most important thing to them is that they know that they will be taken care of regardless, that someone is looking after them. And whether that's, the other spouse, or if it's more serious and the spouse has to go with the patient to the hospital or something, it will be, Uncle so-and-so or grandma or, the next door neighbor or something, people they're comfortable with. So this support list is just great because, you're also panicking and can't think straight if things are really bad and you have to go to the hospital or something. It's easy just to go down this literal list. And as our kids are getting older, they require a little less care. My wife was able to come visit me at the hospital, leave the kids alone for an hour or two. Not so much when they're younger, but you still just need that list and your support people, and you talk to them ahead of time. You talk to your kids ahead of time. Kids don't like surprises any more than we do. So just having that plan is important. When things are less severe and it's more just, daddy's not feeling well, they've known that their entire lives here, and I'm sure same with you, Megan. They're so young, they will just know it. And I found they tend to be very good and understanding about it. You don't ever want to scare them, but, just be truthful. Say, mommy's not feeling very well right now, so daddy's going to, do this with you. Or if you're recovering from something, stay away from daddy's tummy. It's still sore from when he was at the hospital or at the doctor's office or something. Sometimes they need reminding. Kids are rambunctious, but if you treat it, more matter of fact, they're going to treat it matter of fact. The idea is never to scare them or anything, or to, yell at them. I told you to stay away from mom because she's sick or something. Just gentle reminding, and they're usually very good about it.
That's awesome. I love the list idea. You're just full of good ideas today, Brent. But I feel like that's kind of in our wheelhouse as chronic illness patients and ostomy patients specifically. I feel like we thrive most when we've done a little extra preparation. If it comes to anything from a bag change to what food we're going to eat or anything like that, like a little bit of just take the extra 2 minutes, figure out a plan, then go along with your day. Certainly goes a long way.
We're very planful people because we have to be, and it gives us some sense of control. This was 3 years ago when I had my last surgery, I figured I'd be in there anywhere between 4 and 6 days. It turned out to be 8, but I had planned for that. This was more elective in terms of going into it, and I had printed out a kid's schedule sheet specific to the day for, I think I did it for a full 10 days ahead of time and printed it out. And my wife was like, "You were absolutely insane." But we had different caretakers each day because we went down the list, and different people staying with them, and like every little detail, like when they had to go to karate, when they took their medicine, when they're supposed to be in bed. If they didn't go to bed, you need to tell them this. And like to the level of detail, it's a little probably unhealthy for myself mentally to have gone down that crazy rabbit hole. But like you said, we're very good at preparing for things, and it makes us feel better. And it certainly made me feel better, and it gave me something to do in those weeks before the surgery where I was just going crazy worrying about it, and like, well, at least the kids will be taken care of due to my exact specifications here. Lots of eye rolls from that one among the family members and caretakers, but still made me feel better.
But that's just it, because like especially learning with little kids thrive on routine. So
Yep.
you doing that and like making sure that they were sticking to their routine probably also gave you peace of mind
Hmm.
and allowed you to heal in the hospital. You know, you weren't worried about like, oh my gosh, they're, you know, not doing this, they're not listening, they're not sticking to their schedule. So
Yeah.
It's an ingenious way to make sure that all the trains continue to run on time. My parents actually used to do that for my brother and I when they would have to go on business trips. They would print out an entire list of like, this is her blood type, this is the food she likes to eat, this is the food she doesn't like to eat. Remember at 3:30 you need to pick her up from the bus stop. And like we joked every time my parents left, it was like, Mom, did you print off our itinerary for the week? Because we knew that it was gonna go out. But as a kid, I remember that being extremely comforting because it was like, okay, something in my life is different. My parents are not here, but I know that the person who is stepping in to take care of me has the roadmap. Like it still feels comfortable enough, even though it's outside my comfort zone. So I like all the strategies to like, yes, things are different for a couple hours or a couple days or a couple weeks, but we've got you. We are all working on this together. Like we aren't going to let you fall by the wayside just because dad or mom is not feeling so great right now. So really important skills to learn for any parent, I feel. So we've talked a little bit about once kids have arrived, but Megan, I wanted to ask you specifically what pregnancy with an ostomy was like, because that is one of the questions that I feel a lot of female ostomates have, especially if they're getting their ostomy prior to surgery, in terms of, does it affect fertility? Does it affect the way my baby will grow? Does it affect how I should plan to deliver or go through my pregnancy or all that sort of stuff? And so hearing from someone who's done it firsthand is a wonderful resource. So if you could just talk a little bit about your experiences with both of your pregnancies with your ostomy and any great moments, any hiccups, all of that good stuff.
yeah, and this is something that I love talking about because there is such little information out there. And you know, I can remember, oh my gosh, even before my ostomy, when I was first diagnosed and I was like 13, 14, getting ready to go on Remicade, I can remember my dad pulling the doctor out of the room, asking, you know, is this going to impact her? Like, will she be able to have children? You know, and at that time I was like mortified because like he pulled him out of the room. He thinks he's whispering, but I can still hear him. And I was mortified. But, you know, looking back, I'm so glad that he did that because, like, at that time, I didn't realize how important it was going to be for me to have children. But yeah, so my first pregnancy, it was so exciting, but also a little scary because I'm on social media and there weren't a lot of people on social media that had been pregnant. And so I didn't have those resources. You know, I asked my doctors, like, they didn't really know. The burning question was always, will this impact my fertility? You know, no, but we're not really sure. My stoma nurse, I remember a conversation she had with me saying, I can't wait until one of my patients has a baby. I haven't had any ostomy patients, anyone that I've like marked or anything like that. None of them has had a child yet. And so it's just not, you know, it's something, there's not a lot of info out there. And so my first pregnancy, I thought I'm going to be high risk because I have Crohn's disease and an ostomy. I thought that I'm going to have a C-section because it looked like that's what everyone was doing. And I learned I didn't have to be high risk. I requested just because I was worried it was my first pregnancy and I was concerned about the Crohn's. And I also didn't have to have a C-section. I was able to deliver vaginally. I was really, really lucky with my first pregnancy because my doctor was just fantastic. And I think the most important thing, you know, Brent was talking about being prepared. I think it's really important to prepare yourself as much as you can. Childbirth, you know, is wild and crazy. You can't always prepare for that. But the most important thing I think I did was I had that great relationship with my OB doctor. And so before giving birth, we talked about a plan. Something I was really, really worried about. I actually have a Barbie butt. And so I was scared to death of I'm gonna have this baby and my Barbie butt is gonna tear or something like that. And so, and then I thought, how am I gonna recover from this? Because Barbie butt surgery takes like 8 weeks, you know, 8 weeks or longer to recover from. What if I deal with this and I've got a newborn? How am I gonna do this? And so I expressed all these concerns to my doctor. She was fabulous. We hashed out a plan. Thankfully, we stuck to our plan and I avoided anything like that. But back to my first pregnancy. My first pregnancy, I was so lucky because it was really easy. I didn't have any complications. I didn't even have any blockages. It was like a dream pregnancy. I read all this stuff online thinking like, oh my gosh, people are getting blockages at like 36 weeks and then they have to go in for surgery and psyching myself out. But it's so difficult because it's one of those things that like it's different for everyone and you don't really know until you go through it. You know, common stuff that I know a lot of people experience, my stoma size changed. I'm used to having a convex wafer and an inverted stoma. Well, my stoma grew a ton and it started really sticking out. So it got to the point where I didn't need a convex wafer anymore. And once my belly started growing, convex wouldn't even fit. So I got to wear flat wafers. And I also dealt with skin changes postpartum. I think that was probably the hardest. Postpartum, you know, weird things happen when you're pregnant. You have tons of hormones. Your body goes through all these weird changes. The bag I had been wearing for like 4 years straight at that point. Suddenly, as soon as I had my first baby, put that bag on and I was having horrible skin irritation, which was really frustrating to deal with after just giving birth and going through like the rush of hormones during your first couple postpartum weeks, now having to deal with skin irritation. Thankfully, everything kind of went away and evened out. But then with my second pregnancy, my son, he was a little bit of a bigger baby. He was a whole pound larger than my daughter. I actually did experience blockages with him, which was really scary. They were able to be worked out at home, but it's just scary thinking, oh my gosh, what if this blockage doesn't work out? What if I have to go to the ER? What if, you know, especially when you're pregnant. But, you know, just like my first pregnancy, my stoma grew. I had dealt with the skin irritation, but it's pretty amazing because, you know, after pregnancy, after you give birth, it takes a few weeks, but my stoma went back to normal size, everything returned to normal. But yeah, I was really lucky. For the most part, I had really easy pregnancies. I never dealt with anything like the baby pushing on my stoma, which I have heard can feel pretty uncomfortable. Um, I will say my biggest takeaway is just advocate for yourself because, you know, I gave birth to my daughter in Colorado and then we moved to Virginia. I gave birth to my son in Virginia, totally different doctors. And I told the doctor about my past. You know, I had given birth vaginally. She was shocked and had told me if you had not done that previously, you know, if I hadn't known that you'd be having a C-section. She didn't think it'd be possible. And so just advocating for yourself, you know, talk to your doctors as much as you can. I think that's the best way to prepare yourself and to prepare your doctors, and just continue talking about this conversation, because like you said, Molly, there are so many people out there with these kind of questions, and there's just not a lot of research or information available. So, the worst thing, and I was guilty of it, is scanning the internet, the deep dark depths of the internet, and finding these horror stories, because like I said earlier, everyone is different, everyone's body is different, everyone's going to have a different experience. But just advocate, talk to your doctors, have that open dialogue, because that's what's best for your health and your baby's health.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like for every like wild and crazy story you find on the internet about ostomy pregnancy, there's probably a dozen perfectly healthy pregnancies that happen with an ostomy, but you only see the crazy ones because why talk about the normal ones?
Exactly.
So let's talk about the normal ones. So when you were doing your family planning process, do you involve your GI doctor, your colorectal surgeon, OB, or was it really primarily your OB practice that took the reins on that?
So at the time, well, really, I guess both pregnancies. My first pregnancy, we were military and we were moving constantly, which was really hard as a chronic illness patient, because my doctors were constantly having to change, and I was constantly having to get medication approved in different locations and just orchestrating, and it was kind of a nightmare. And so, my husband and I, we've always wanted to have children. We had been married like 4 years at that point. And so, we wanted to start trying. And I was so scared I wouldn't be able to get pregnant, because I don't know why. I don't know if you guys have heard this, or if you think this, but I feel like there's this notion of, I have an ostomy, so that's going to impact my fertility, or I have an ostomy, so I'm probably not going to be able to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the mindset I had.
And it's not just the ostomy. It's in your case, in my case, it's the inflammatory bowel disease too. So you had a double whammy there.
Exactly.
In order to think that way.
Yes, exactly. And so, I worried about that so much that I actually went to a fertility doctor. At that point, we knew we wanted to get pregnant. My GIs were changing nonstop. So I didn't really have that GI relationship that I had when I initially had my surgery. And I was kind of just set in one place. But I ended up seeing a fertility doctor, which was incredibly eye-opening. I learned so much about myself, and I learned so much about my health. We had been trying for like a year at that point, so we thought, let's just do it. And it helped us a lot. I ended up I took Clomid. I did one round of Clomid, and we were able to get pregnant. Now, the irony is, it took us like 2 years to get pregnant with my daughter. So our son, we thought, well, we need to try early, because if it takes us a long time, we don't want them to be like years and years apart. My brother and I are 5 years apart, and we have a good relationship, but we just wanted our children closer. So we're like, all right, once our daughter turns 1, we'll start trying, thinking it's going to take years. And it didn't. It happened a month after our daughter turned 1. So here we are with a 1-year-old and a almost 3-year-old. But no, you're back to your question. I didn't really consult my GI, which, if you do have a GI that you have a great relationship and you stick with, I definitely think you should consult them. But I was in a weird place just because we were moving all the time. My doctors were constantly changing. I didn't really have that relationship, I didn't really have that point of contact. So my OB doctor, she was really my big advocate to help me. And I think too, we had a unique relationship because when you have a patient with an ostomy, it's not an everyday thing. So I was really a unique case. And I think she took a lot of interest in that. And I knew she wanted to take care of me. And I could tell, she knew I had a lot of concerns. She wanted to take care of me. She wanted to make sure that everything was going to be fine. I was going to have a healthy pregnancy. And she really advocated hard for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like as younger people with ostomies, because the median age for an ostomy is about 65, which is after menopause for most women, I would think. So you're not going to have a ton of OBs who see ostomy patients just because there are way more women who choose to become pregnant than there are women with ostomies who choose to become pregnant. And then from a GI perspective, there are going to be way more ostomates who are post childbearing age than there are women who want to have children and now have an ostomy as well. So I feel like we are that weird Venn diagram of like, yeah, we're the tiny little population of all of this stuff. So finding a practitioner who is either comfortable because they've already had one, or like they're really ready to do some research and go into the experience with you, and as long as you feel like you're your own advocate and they are also advocating for you, I think that's really all you can ask for.
Exactly. And it's, those conversations are so important. You need to have those conversations with your OB doctor because just like you said, they may have never experienced this before, but they're willing to do the research. And, as a patient, what better way to educate than through your personal experiences, sharing with the doctor and having that relationship. So my biggest thing is talk to your doctor and have these dialogues, these open dialogues, because they want to help you and they want to ensure everything goes smoothly.
Mm-hmm. That's really within their best interest for that. So Brent, I'm assuming you don't really have much to add in terms of that realm. I feel like you are post.
Well, I mean, I mean, one of the best advice is, and I mean, both of you kind of were going this direction, is not to make assumptions. So don't just assume that you're going to have trouble, conceiving a child just because you have an ostomy or inflammatory bowel disease or anything at all. Actually, it seems so much seems so random. Like we've had people I know that have had fertility issues that have no other health issues, and then some that have health issues that have no problem conceiving children. So don't make assumptions. Don't assume that it's going to be hard, but also don't assume that it's going to be easy either, because you just never know. Coming from a man's perspective, for me, it was, I had both children before the ostomy. We only wanted two. We knew we were done at that point. But even just from the inflammatory bowel disease perspective, I had concerns about my own fertility and chance of birth defects and such. There were so many medications I had been on, none at that time. That time I was only on Humira, but I had been on sulfasalazine, methotrexate, and 6-MP and Imuran, all of which, and I think some was just for men. They say don't be on if you're trying to have a child. Some increase birth defects, some lower sperm count. So I wasn't on any at the time, but I wondered, well, what have these done to my body? My doctor said, oh, well, once you're off them for a certain period of time, you should be fine. So I was concerned. I was very blessed in that both my children conceived very easily and came out just fine. But the concern was there. From an ostomy perspective, for some men, depending on the surgery they have, can impact function, basically. I can't speak too much to that. I know Dr. Nandi has done that talk like a zillion times for UOAA and other organizations. It's a great talk addressing malfunction after ostomy surgery. So it certainly is something that can impact men as well. But yeah, it's again, just it might or it might not. So don't make assumptions. And it's interesting, Megan, as soon as you were saying, well, we thought we were going to have trouble with the second one, I'm like, oh, that's
Mhm.
why they're so close in age. I
The
knew exactly where you were
irony.
going there. That would make sense.
Yeah, but no, yeah, exactly. I totally agree what you were saying as far as the medication side, because um, thankfully there are a lot of pregnancy safe medications right now. But even before I was pregnant, like when we were newly married and just dreaming about having kids, I was so scared of thinking, okay, putting this in my body, how is it going to impact me? Is it safe? All my doctors would assure me, yes, it's safe. And, a lot would say, oh, it's pregnancy safe. So if you do get pregnant, it's okay if you're on this. Um, I, it's like hard for me to speak on this because at that point I was at a place where I was doing really well health wise. And I know sometimes they say pregnancy can send you into remission or pregnancy could take you out of remission. Um, I was in remission before I got pregnant, so I was at a place where I chose not to be on medication when I was pregnant, just because, I was healthy enough where I didn't need it, so I didn't want to be on it while I was pregnant. But yeah, it's scary, it's always like nerve-wracking putting something into your body and wondering how it's going to react. But at the end of the day, you need to do what's best for you. And like we've been saying this whole time, your doctors are the best people to talk to. They're going to have your back.
Mhm. And then listen to people like Megan who are open and honest about their experiences, because we learn just as much from each other as we do from our medical professionals as well, with the reminder that all bodies are different. And just because Megan had the easiest pregnancy ever for her first one doesn't mean that we will not all experience blockages in other stages. So I really appreciate you talking about that experience, because this is a video that I feel like a lot of people will look back on as they enter that phase of life, me included. So really appreciate those insights. So we're nearing the end of time. So before I ask one last question, are there any questions that you wanted to ask each other?
We addressed my biggest question. Brent hit the nail on the head. My biggest thing is, how are you addressing this with your children and talking to your children? And I think you did a great job. And I love how you suggest letting them lead, and letting them lead, and because that's going to kind of dictate their comfort level. So that was my biggest question that I wanted to know, because I know we're coming up to that point soon with our daughter. So yeah.
It'll go easier than you think. So that's what I would say about that. And Megan, I was curious going into this, hearing your pregnancy stories, because as you said, there's not much out there on that. You don't get to hear from people too much that have done that. So thank you for sharing that. It's enlightening.
Yeah. Super, super helpful. I'm taking a look at all my other questions here. Oh, I like to ask all of our panelists, have you ever had a crazy ostomy mishap? Either crazy bag explosion, crazy mom, what's that? Or any fun ostomy story you'd like to share. I'll give you the opportunity to.
So this was before I had children. Right? Oh my gosh, I've had bag leaks everywhere. I think the worst, I've had them in the car when you're driving, and then it's running down my stomach, getting on my back, all over the seat. No, I think my craziest was so when I went through surgery, my husband was military, he was actually deployed. And I found out I had a precancerous colon, and then 2 weeks later, he had to deploy. So he deployed. He was able to come home a week when I had surgery. So he came home, he stayed with me at the hospital. But then he was gone for 7 more months. So it was kind of like an interesting thing because it was almost like he left and I was one way, and then he came home and I was different. Not in a negative way or anything, but just perspective. But anyways, so he was gone. So I was staying at home with my parents, and my parents were helping me recover. And they had planned a trip to Europe. And they thought, okay, this crazy thing has happened. You've been through so much. You can come with us. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was 24 and I was 3 months post-op, and I flew to Germany by myself. My parents were already there. They did a cruise and I met them. I flew to Germany by myself. And as soon as I got off the plane by myself in a foreign country, my bag starts leaking everywhere in the airport. And for the most part, like most countries have everything in English, but you're so overwhelmed and you're like, oh, especially like newly post-op, you get that hot flash, you feel your bag leaking, you're by yourself. It's like, where the heck is the restroom? I'm in this foreign country. So yeah, thankfully everything was fine, but that's my crazy mishap.
I can't even imagine. That's incredible. Oh,
As for me, I'll nothing with a bag leaking or anything, but 14-year-old son, everything related to poop and farts is funny. So he loves loves saying that dad can't fart, or at least not in a way that, the rest of us do. So, his favorite thing to do is fart in front of me and say, "Ha ha, you can't retaliate," and then run away. um, and this has been going on for years. So I'm like, that is true. I certainly could retaliate in other ways that would be much, much worse, but I have not done that. um, but um, but it's nice it's nice that we've gotten to the point where we can joke about that, and I think it's probably easier for my kids to joke about it and treat it matter of factly than myself. It took me a long way to get to that point, but I'm glad that I'm able to do that and do that with my kids, even if it's based on off-color jokes and such. But we have to have a sense of humor about this stuff.
exactly. We can't miss up a good like poop or fart joke in this community. So I love that. I love that. Well, last question before we wrap up. We've talked a lot about all the tips and tricks for parents out there, but if you had to sum it up in like one tip or one statement, like what do you want someone who is embarking on parenthood with an ostomy to know? Either they've already had their ostomy and they're about to have a baby, or they've already had their babies and now they're about to be an ostomate. What would you want to tell someone who is about to start on that process?
That's a hard question. I think for me, I would probably say that it's beautiful, it's messy, and the most important thing, like I've said this entire talk, is to advocate for yourself. Because especially during pregnancy, it's not just you're also advocating for your child. So advocate for yourself. It's okay if it gets messy. Things are going to be messy. Your body's going to go through like weird changes. But in the end, it's a really beautiful thing. And, just because you have an ostomy doesn't mean that like your pregnancy is diminished in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not diminished. You will still have a beautiful, wonderful pregnancy, and you're that much healthier, hopefully, because of your ostomy, that you can enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
That's longer than a sentence. Sorry.
Wonderful. A
That's
short
good.
paragraph. A short paragraph's fine.
As for me, I'll go back to the having the list of your support network, the list of people that will care for your children when you need someone to take care of you, and it helps everybody. It gives you peace of mind. It gives your children peace of mind. It gives your spouse or partner peace of mind, and just having that prepared and having that ready to go, and that's the number one tip that I've learned over these 8.5 years having both an ostomy and children, because you never know what might happen. We don't we still, even after the ostomy, we still have bumpy health lives, so it's always good to be prepared, and for your children to know that you're prepared for them.
That's awesome information. Oh, well, thank you guys both for joining me for this discussion. This is going to be a great resource for Ostomate's current and future. So thank you for taking the time out of your Saturday to have this conversation with me. For those of you who are interested in other panels, you can check out on all of our recordings on UOAA's YouTube page. We'll be doing another one next Saturday, October 15th, same time, 2 p.m. And that will be on exercise with the ostomy. We've got two great panelists who are going to talk about coming back into exercise post-surgery, how to do it safely, how to do it effectively, and can't wait for that conversation either. But in the meantime, have a great fall week. It's starting to get a little bit nippy here and watching all the leaves change color. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.